The young man in front of him who was wearing glasses and studying hard. Do you think he's a top student? In fact, he is a martial arts talent. 18 kinds of martial arts have been practiced to the top fighting genius. Just a teenager. Learn all of Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do. Easy to be able to fit in the community. There are countless difficult movements on the equipment. Facing the bat of Muay Thai after 3 years of training. It's even more comfortable. One punch can teach him to be a man. But the goal of the male protagonist is only to study hard. Although his parents had found him a tutor. But there is no male protagonist with this talent. Tutored for a few years. The results still can't be improved. He has been ranked second to last in his class. But for the sake of the ideal, the male protagonist still hasn't given up. After graduating, he went to a school called a hooligan. Vocational high school in an elite school. Students inside, all of them are masters of fighting. Say it's the school. It is better to say that the rank is determined by force here. Gangster gathering place. But this does not affect the male protagonist to study hard. He even wanted to start a study group here. At this time, a group of thugs came in front of him. The leader is Lee Xuanyu, the leader of the male protagonist class, smoking in Osaka on campus. No teacher dared to touch their brows. But the new female teacher is obviously not sensible. Classmates who stopped in front of the gangsters. Smoking is harmful to health. Let's snuff out the cigarette for the sake of your body. Sure enough, the little thugs at the head were angry. Gave the girl a big mouth on the spot. Even the headmaster can't control us. You're old. The girl looked confused. It's unheard of for a student to hit a teacher at school. The gangsters are even more arrogant. Haven't you ever seen a student spank a teacher? The female teacher cried in fear, begging not to do this. But that only made the gangsters even worse. I also want to continue to do it to my sister. But now I am witnessing it in the dark. The male protagonist of everything can't sit still. Because of this female teacher. Officially tutored his tutor for 2 years. At that time, although the male protagonist was waiting. The girl didn't complain at all. It's definitely okay to motivate the male protagonist. Finally, the male protagonist walked out in everyone's eyes. Take off your coat and put it on the female teacher. I'll start to do it in a moment. If his clothes get dirty, his mother won't spare him. The gangsters see this nerdy but nosy. Immediately, everyone began to gear up. The black-clothed thug was angry. Kicked it towards the male owner. I didn't expect to be caught by the male protagonist. Knock him down. And a few other gangsters thought they were companions. Carelessly laughed at each other. It seems that he has not yet realized the seriousness of the matter. That's when the second thug arrived. A straight punch smashed towards the male protagonist's face. And the male protagonist is stuck in memories. Childhood. He has an almost obsessive interest in martial arts. My favorite thing to watch is martial arts videos. He has already finished watching Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do. In order to test their martial arts skills, he has even been in the ring. But because mom has been this interest in him, so he could only study secretly. The picture goes back to just now. The male protagonist has a trick Jeet Kune Do. Deal with the thugs who rushed over. Then put on Bruce Lee's posture. It's the head of a thug. Soon the leader also rushed towards the male protagonist. The male protagonist finished with a 180-degree backflip. Then it landed smoothly. A set of operations is fluid. Beat the thugs until they foamed at the mouth. The girl on the side was dumbfounded. The reason why this guy doesn't study well has been found. It turns out that the talent is all on this. The girl hasn't relented yet. The male protagonist stretched out his hand to him. Teacher, I take back the sentence I just told you to leave. You don't give up. But can you continue to tutor me in my homework? That's the deeds of the male protagonist. It soon reached the ears of various bigwigs. They don't believe that the male protagonist has such strength. Even if there is, he will get out of school obediently. This scumbag boy has a terrifying talent for fighting. Whether it's Bruce Lee's Taekwondo or the way various weapons are used, he has practiced to the maximum level. If you go to mix with the black party, it will definitely be the existence of the handle. but he just wants to study hard. Today he is also daily in the small. High-intensity workouts are performed in the area. Then get stuck in time and sneak back to fill the water. Sure enough, after a while, his mother came to wake him up. The male protagonist pushed his glasses. Study hard today too. And he has no talent for learning, and he wants to be admitted to university. The first step must be taken. That is to look for peers who can be admitted to university. The male protagonist looked around. First of all, this one yawns. Those who are ready to go to class and sleep are definitely not going to work. Not to mention this one who smirks at the novel. Soon the male protagonist noticed a student. Kim Se-hyun was actively reading books before he was in class. Look at the eyes is the person he is looking for. So, the male protagonist will greet this classmate every day. But every time he is directly ignored by Jin Shursian. Because the male protagonist is not a good student at first glance. But despite this, the male protagonist is still persistent. At this time, Kim Se-hyun was washing his hands. He's not very unwilling to teach the male lead. But teach others to learn in this kind of school. It's just too earthy. It's easy to be a thorn in the side of some thugs. At this moment, a man suddenly patted him on the shoulder. Jin Shursian thought that it was the male protagonist again, and the ghost was not gone. Just about to drive away. But it's not the male protagonist who appears in front of him. Rather, in the midst of a multitude of thugs. A mound with a place. Burial of the king. He just wanted to wipe his hands with Kim Se-hyun's clothes. At this time, Jin Shursian's heart was pinched. He knew that if he messed with this guy, he would be done. The other side of the picture. The female teacher is being domesticated by the principal in the office. Because of his first day in office, someone smashed the glass. And then there are many colleagues in the office. The girl was ashamed of being scolded by the principal. But the girl who left the principal's office, already completely disappointed with the education in this school. The last time I smoked on campus. He mentioned it earlier. But both the teacher and the principal said they couldn't manage it. What the hell should I do? And at this very moment, his life interrupted the sister's musings. It was in the equipment that Kim Se-hyun was bullied by gangsters. Before that, Kim Se-hyun doesn't know how long he's been bullied. But the thugs are still, in the most vicious way, kept shooting at Jin Shursian. And the girl watched this scene, watching the students in their own class being bullied. After the last incident, he also dared to be angry, but he did not dare to speak. He knew this was happening at this school. There was simply nothing he could do. And just when the girl was kneeling on the ground, when I regret my incompetence, a pair of large hands suddenly pulled him up. It's the male teacher who just arrived. The floor is too dirty. That's right, he just wanted to ask Kim Shursian for advice and learning. But I couldn't find it all the way here. I saw the male protagonist clenching his fists. Don't worry. There are very few sages, students who are admitted to university. If he had gone, my study group is not going to be easy. Kim Se-hyun, who was bullied. The matter fell to the ground and kept admitting his mistake. This endless beating. It had already choked him up and couldn't speak. And the male protagonist was just about to step forward. Was pulled by the female teacher behind him. He doesn't allow the male protagonist to fight like he did yesterday. Nothing can be solved by violence. And the male protagonist did not open the teacher's hand. He just turned his head and laughed darkly. As long as you don't fight, don't you? As he spoke, he picked up the equipment. The fire extinguisher is gently pressed. In an instant, smoke rose in the equipment room. In this way, the male protagonist took Kim Shursian and ran away while he was in chaos. Really? This wave of operations shocked the female teacher again. It's true that there was no fight. But is that really good? This is definitely the kindest teacher I have ever met. Because yesterday the male protagonist rescued and was bullied by the gangsters. The thrilling adventure. Using a fire extinguisher to make a mess of equipment. The girl actually took advantage of the first 2 classes in the morning, alone to help the male protagonist clean up the mess. Because whenever he is in danger, it's all thanks to the timely appearance of the male protagonist. I can only help him in this way. but you'll have to clean it up quickly. Otherwise, I will be guided by that fierce teaching director. But it's not good. But it's so unlucky. Sure enough, the Dean of Education came. When the Dean of Students discovers the powder on the equipment, it was immediately decided to clean up the troublesome student. The girl, in order not to let the male protagonist be punished, muster up the courage to take responsibility for the male protagonist. Just then a teenager happened to pass by. Says he knows who did it. I saw that the boy had many dreams and was sorry for the teacher. Actually, I did it. These words instantly shocked the girl's face. There are countless question marks in my heart. Who the hell is this teenager? Even took the initiative to help himself out of the siege. And the Dean of Teachings, after meeting this teenager, miraculously, the fire was extinguished. The attitude is also respectful. This makes the girl a little curious. What is the origin of this teenager? On the other side of the screen, the male protagonist is studying in the classroom. Kim Soo-hyun persuaded the male protagonist to give up. He had never seen anyone so stupid. I don't know anything about a simple question. But at the same time, Kim Se-hyun is also curious. Obviously, the male protagonist's skills are so rebellious. Careers related to physical fitness are very suitable. Why does the male protagonist choose to study? The battered male protagonist is weak. Said weakly. Because I heard, perseverance comes from a strong body. Thought it would improve academic performance. He's just starting to learn. Even the male protagonist himself is sighing. Why is he so stupid? However, although Jin Soo-hyun persuaded the male protagonist to give up, but in my heart, I thought this person was very interesting. I also took the initiative to take out, when I was in school, notes that have been made. This is all the knowledge in junior high school mathematics. What is in the textbooks and what is not is here. It's his all-purpose book. And Jin Soo-hyun also said confidently, the male protagonist used this. At least can get from a super. Become an ordinary fool. I heard that I could become a normal fool. Little stars appear in the eyes of the male protagonist. But this is a bench. But suddenly smashed into the male protagonist's head. It was Cho Zae-hwang who was beaten by the male protagonist yesterday. It's time for revenge. He had to teach him a lesson today. This nerd proved that he is not to be trifled with. At this moment, the male protagonist's head has been injured. Blood kept pouring down his head. Moreover, Cho Zae-hwang also found a pen that had fallen to the ground. Ji-cho looked at the male protagonist's panicked expression in Hwang. I guess that this must be the real thing of the male protagonist. I saw Cho Zae-hwang take out a lighter. I want to set the note on fire. The flames on the lighter were warning him. He's just playing with fire. But he lit it up anyway and threw it away. The male protagonist wants to remedy it, but it's too late. The screen turns. At this time, the principal was currying favor with the school. Fights and brawls at school they let go. It's all about patting on the back. Just walked and walked. The school suddenly noticed. Female teacher cleaning up. And he also walked to the mirror and looked at it carefully for a long time. I always feel that this girl looks a little familiar. And the headmaster was afraid. Cigarette butts found in trash cans during school breaks. I'm in a hurry to take the school break. Check it out somewhere else. At this time, a student suddenly ran over. It was Kim Se-hyun who took advantage of the chaos to escape from the classroom. He anxiously said that something big was happening. The classroom caught fire. And the headmaster who heard this. No immediate measures were taken. Instead, he chose to please the superintendent first. He first glared at Kim Se-hyun. What nonsense are you talking about, boy? Then he went back to the superintendent. It's a student joking. Because it's on fire. The fire alarm didn't think. If it is found that the fire protection facilities are not perfect, the consequences are severe. He was going to take the superintendent to look elsewhere first. Let the dean of students go up as soon as possible. But this disgusting behavior, it only makes people feel more chilled. Is such a place really a school? Soon, the female teacher and Kim Se-hyun ran towards the classroom. But it feels like it's too late. Because at the moment when the notes burned to ashes, The male protagonist showed a demonic expression. At this moment, Kim Sher-yeon already had a premonition. Soon a terrible catastrophe is coming. Remember this man. Next year, his grave grass should be a meter tall. How dare he burn it? Destroy the study notes that Kim Sher-yeon gave to the male protagonist. At this moment, the dark side of the male protagonist's heart has been. Outright outbreak. I remembered when Kim Se-hyun gave him a note. That proud look. Tell him to have this. You can go from being a super stupid person to a normal stupid person. Finally, someone was willing to help him. And something so important burned right before his eyes. But the male protagonist still gave the gangster one last chance. Apologize and make the thugs apologize to Se-yeon. But the gangsters are still extremely arrogant. It means that the next person to be firewood is the male protagonist. Hearing this, the male protagonist has completely made up his mind. He had to teach the scum a good lesson. Soon the thugs took the initiative to rush up and send them to death. The male protagonist stretched out his leg and stumbled lightly into his body. It's a bang punch. This was followed by a few more combinations. But this gangster is also courageous. He even dared to stand up and provoke. Raise your hand and grab the set knapsack on fire. Threw a fist at the male protagonist. And the male protagonist next. It was even more surprising. He actually picked up the backpack with his feet. Gently raise your leg and draw an arc of flame. At this moment, the little gangsters have begun to panic in their hearts. How could this madman do such a thing? And he was greeted with a facial plastic surgery. Soon, Teacher Kim Hyunwoo rushed to the door of the classroom. I just happened to see Autumn. Flew out of the Hwang Sung classroom. I can't even recognize my mother after being beaten. The male protagonist, who soon lost his mind, also rushed out. Let this scum not faint first. Apologize to Se-yeon first. Kim Se-hyun and the female teacher were already shocked by this scene. Dumbfounded. The male protagonist was just about to tell the teacher to rest assured that he was fine. But I didn't have to wait for the words to be finished. Turning his head, he just saw the school ship standing aside. Assault on classmates plus arson. What is your name? The vice principal, who had just arrived, was so frightened that he fell to his knees. Incoherent, his school is coming to an end. Soon, the male protagonist was called to the principal's office to wait for punishment. The students who got the news came to watch. Not only set fire to classrooms, also beat Shio Zaihwang of the Yin by gang. Now the male protagonist is completely famous in this school. At this time, the male protagonist is regretting his impulsiveness. I'm not going to be dropped out of school. How to explain to your mother when the time comes. Then the door suddenly moved, scared the male protagonist to a thrill. It turned out to be Kim Se-hyun who came to visit him. The male protagonist asked him to leave quickly. If you stay here, you will be punished with yourself. But Kim Se-hyun's next sentence, it makes the male protagonist feel extremely warm. Our team leader was wrongfully punished. Of course, I'm going to show up. Jin Sher-yeon couldn't help but blame the male protagonist. Isn't it because of a notebook? As for being so impulsive, gotta learn a lesson. The male protagonist spoke. Because there are notes you made carefully. The notes in that book are so neat. You must have put in a lot of effort at that time. The thought of those efforts of yours being burned to ashes. I was so angry. Again, let that. Kim Se-hyun was speechless with emotion. At this moment, he has fully recognized the male protagonist. I saw Jin Sher-yeon scratching his face. Please advise me in the future. That's when it happened. Suddenly, the vice principal and others opened the door and walked in. As soon as you come in, you don't have to divide. Scolded the male protagonist indiscriminately, and in order to please the senior sister, and casually gave it to the male owner. Orders to withdraw from school. At this moment, the male protagonist is already dead. I finally got this opportunity to learn. I also made friends who studied together. And so it ended. This situation has already made the female teacher angry. Is it really the male protagonist who is wrong with all this? It's not this school that gives up on students so easily. Right away, the female teacher will usher in the highest moment of the whole show. Have you ever seen such a disgusting school? Fights and brawls, no one cares about 70 classmates. School violence is commonplace. And something happened. It is also the weaker party who bears the responsibility. Now, the male protagonist who has been issued a withdrawal punishment is like this. Dead ashes. The vice principal is after the punishment is issued. He took the traitor and went away. It was easy to decide on one. The power of life and death of students. Finally, the female teacher bravely stood up. Although the body has long been scared to tremble, but it was still hysterically shouted. It's this school that's really wrong. That's right, this school has long forgotten about junior high school. In order to curry favor with a student traitor, easily cut off a child's future. As an educator, you don't need to look at leadership. The words are the eyes of the students. At least I won't give up on students as easily as you do. The girl runs the risk of being fired. Every sentence is sonorous and powerful. That's right, it's this school that's wrong. The girl still remembers when he advised the male protagonist not to fight. Because of the guilt in my heart, his hands kept shaking. He knew that in this school of the jungle, is there any other way to counter violence with violence? Look at the girl's determined eyes. At this time, the superintendent finally remembered. No wonder he looked at this female teacher so familiarly. The superintendent chuckled, and it was really extraordinary. Teacher Li Hanjing, the champion of the teacher exam. Hear this. Whether it's the superintendent, the vice principal on the side is still the male lead. They were all stunned in surprise. Teacher examination champion teacher. And the headmaster still couldn't believe it. The top student in the teacher exam. How could you come to be a teacher in such a school? Learning, on the other hand, said that he remembered it clearly. Last year's teacher exam in the capital. It was this teacher who came first. Passed the exam. However, he refused to register for personal reasons. Mr. Li Hanjin, is this the school you said you were going to change? And the vice principal. At this moment, I was already stupefied by the scene happening in front of me. But the scum vice principal really didn't disappoint everyone. Still reprimanding the girl with a critical tone. But the girl didn't pay attention to what the vice principal said. At the moment, I thought of the male protagonist who asked him to help him study. A study group was also organized for the study. Yes, he's going to create study groups in school. With his classmate Ian Siming. And the vice president is still trying to obstruct it. I saw the superintendent think about it. Completely indifferent to the opinion of the vice principal. I decided to do it. And instructors. Teacher Li Hanjing must be the vice principal. If you still want to continue to block, then I'm going to report the fire alarm first. Or that's it. The male protagonist was not only exempted from the penalty of dropping out. Study groups were also successfully formed. And the student who came out at this time had a solemn face. Originally, he was going to come and close the school. But it's not easy for Mr. Li Hanjing to come. At this moment, a voice sounded from behind. It was before helping Li Hanjing, a beautiful girl who broke the siege. At this time, he was wiping the blood on his hands. That's right, he is Li Jianhua, a traitor. And on the other side of the picture, health room. A thug was watching the scene in front of him. Shocked. In the corner is the gangster who has just been beaten by the male protagonist. At this time, I don't know who tortured me. In the car, Li Jianhua said lightly, "Let the students who make mistakes take responsibility. Isn't it the school's duty?" The superintendent is right back. And he won't let this school get a good death. How hard it is for a gangster school to study well. The male protagonist is forced to fight with the gangsters every day. Leads to learning in school. The misunderstanding of the male protagonist is getting deeper and deeper. The male protagonist was gradually inherited and wanted to rule. School bully. The male protagonist at this time. I'm planning a study group with my teacher. They want to get the students in the school. Have become passionate about learning. Immediately, the announcement was posted on the school's publicity wall. But the onlookers knew that it was the male protagonist who did it. but one is more outrageous than the other. This freshman who has just been enrolled for a month will repay Chiu Zaihuang of the Yen by gang. How could such a brutal guy learn? They only think it's male. The Lord is using this pretext to help relieve the fire, or find someone to be a punching bag. And there are people who do sabotage. Such an interesting school. How could such a thing exist? And the male protagonist who doesn't know, still browsing the bookstore with the female teacher. In order to help the male protagonist learn, the teacher found a mountain of textbooks. However, when I turned around, I found that the male protagonist was gone. Originally, the male protagonist found a one-on-one focus interview. Bruce Lee Day. He always felt that this was helpful for his studies. The female teacher had no choice but to buy the book together. The girl said, "We'll definitely make the male protagonist a scholar," and touched the male protagonist's head and said dotingly, "I'll leave it to you tomorrow, and then let's do it together." After buying the book, I didn't know it was night. The female teacher returned home happily. However, the girl who was just about to open the door of the house was frightened by the scene in front of him and froze in place. The door to the house has been opened. Exactly a couple of gangsters. I don't know how I got the address of my sister's house. Trespass on a private house. And the male protagonist on the other side is leisurely walking home. Walking and walking, but anxiously rummaging through shopping bags. The Bruce Lee interview that I just bought is gone. Could it be that I forgot to take it in the teacher's bag? If you don't get it back, it may not be until Monday to see the book. Well, let's go to the teacher's house and pick it up. At this time, the teacher's home. The girl is being bullied by the gangsters. They want to leave an indelible shadow on the girl, so that he will never be able to be a teacher. Do you know? It is useless for the teacher to call the police, because the police are all after the incident. Will appear in such a closed room. No one will find out even if the girl calls for help. At this moment, the door opened unexpectedly. A dark shadow appeared in the doorway. It was Lee Jianhua, who was wearing the uniform of Yusung High School. The girl also recognized it at a moment. Isn't this Dong Mao who helped him out of the siege last time? Teenagers, thugs. I don't know how Lee Jianhua found here, but it doesn't matter anymore, because soon this love-loving boy will be dealt with. However, the thugs who rushed up was punched away by Lee Jianhua. The thugs finally realized this guy didn't pass by here by accident. Obviously came prepared, but that's okay too. He knew the kid's weakness. Saw. The thug punched Lee Jianhua in the waist. Sure enough, Lee Jianhua was immediately in pain. He knew the temptation to attack Lee Jianhua. He's going to be in pain and can't stand it. Saying that, another punch came. At this time, Lee Jianhua was already standing unsteadily in pain, because when he was in junior high school, a big thing happened, but few people should know about it. I didn't expect this gangster to know so much. Could it be that this thug knew about that? But at this time, I don't care about this kind of thing anymore. He could only find a way to leave with the teacher first. I saw Lee Jianhua using his fingers, broke the glass of the roof, took advantage of the chaos to take the girl outside. And the little gangsters at this time are not very flustered. It turned out to be like this. No wonder. Big Brother Korean will divide us into two groups of actions. At this time, the male protagonist on the other side. I found that the teacher's phone couldn't get through. The male protagonist immediately looked lost. The teacher probably wouldn't have gone to bed so early. Don't you want to answer my phone? It's not polite to go to the teacher's house now. But Bruce Lee interviewed him really and wanted to watch it. And just when the male protagonist is struggling, I happened to meet a thug who was running. As he spoke, he found Lee Hanjin. Hearing this, the male protagonist looked nervous. Could it be that something happened to the teacher? This arrogant and domineering man with a girl in his arms. One sentence can make countless gangsters obey him. That's right. He is a gangster at Yusung High School and a large number of Korean. He wants to destroy the real thing of the male protagonist. Let the male protagonist become the same scum as them. Once man tastes power, will become a poisonous snake that makes fun of others. Just like the Cho egg yolk last time, at this time, S sister has been surrounded by a group of thugs. In the middle, but fortunately, there is Poo Jianya to protect him. At this time, another gangster recognized Poo Jianya. He only needs to think of Poo Jianya. I don't get angry. It turned out that he was just robbing the lower grades. Students' money was beaten up by Poo Jianya and let him kneel down for the garbage. But at that time, the general construction industry ranked second in Shihua Middle School. I didn't dare to disobey him at all. But now is an opportunity. Seeing the thugs, he kicked towards Poo Jianya. But Poo Jianya has long been ready to hide behind him. Xiao stepped forward and slammed into the thug's leg. Sure enough, Xiao Luo Luo has more scenes, and he is still Xiao Luo Luo. Although Poo Jianya fought hard, but it can't stand the overwhelming number of people on the other side, and each of them has a weapon in his hand. The girl was a little embarrassed in her heart. Are these people really high school students? However, just when the girl was about to find a chance to call the police. Back! But I saw the thugs who broke into the house at that time, and on the other side, Poo Jianya, still under the gang beating of the gangsters. It's hard to protect itself. At this point, there was no one left to save him. I watched as the thug's hand was raised again. The girl closed her eyes in despair, waiting for violence to come. However, the next second, the gangster's action came to an abrupt end. The gangsters were a little confused. It turned out that the male protagonist behind him was grabbing his hat. Don't you understand, people? Didn't I tell you to stop? And the gangsters lying on the ground. The confusion is already starting to get confused. Why is this monster here? But he couldn't even think of it. It turned out to be just because of a Bruce Lee interview. As soon as the male protagonist came, the situation reversed. The little thugs who were scared didn't dare at all. Reckless. The male protagonist not only asked the teacher slowly, "What happened?" Take advantage of the male protagonist's conversation. One of the thugs glanced at his companion. The other thug nodded slightly, and the teacher and the male protagonist is still worried about the safety of Poo Jianya. Fight a bike to a motorcycle. The two gangsters took the opportunity to rush to the male protagonist together. There's a lot of strength, and I don't know it. But the next second, they were kicked away by the male protagonist one by one. Although there is strength in numbers, but there are exceptions, and the male protagonist solved it easily. The application of two gangsters. They were all seen by Poo Jianya. Who is this guy? And just in Poo Jianya's stunned guessed. The thugs hit Poo Jianya's parents with a chain. At a time when Poo Jianya was in pain, another thug also raised his stick. A sneak attack is ready. But the imaginary attack did not come, because the gangster was kicked away by the male protagonist. Then the male protagonist picked up the stick of the little gangster. Deliberately with a stick, go catch the chains of another thug. A sharp pull, and he pulled the chains out of the thug's hands. Poo Jianya is a little confused. What is this guy doing with this thing? Is it to destroy the weapons of the thugs? No, this guy shouldn't be wanted. And at this time, one of the thugs had already secretly taken a wine bottle. Although you kid has 2 hits. But even the strong masters can't stand the sneak attack. But at this time, the male protagonist's weapon has been prepared. A single blow shattered the gangster's bottle. That's right, the weapon of the male protagonist. It's Bruce Lee's favorite nunchuck. Mom at home at this time. I saw the schedule written by the male owner. Smile with relief. Don't know about this kid. Have you finished what you wrote? Wait, what's this last line? Practice nunchucks. Jianya heard that you transferred from the United States. I guess I think English is pretty good. The male protagonist who was gradually surrounded by the gangsters. Speak slowly. Would the study group be interested in finding out? Although Gu Jianya was very confused. But he still reminded the male protagonist. Now is not the time to talk about such things. And the male protagonist just handed the shopping bag to Pugiani. Let him help him get it. The general health industry is unconsciously the result. But then he found out, this guy, it's not going to be a one-man affair with these people. This man has a talent for fighting against the sky. In this gangster school, it is an invincible existence. But the ignorant are fearless. There are still gangsters who want to test the reality of the male protagonist. The male protagonist had to be brought out the project he was preparing to practice today. Nunchucks have real sparring partners, significantly more efficient than practicing on your own. Soon the little gangster will come back to the male protagonist. The male protagonist posed Bruce Lee's signature moves. Then take the gangsters to use Bruce Lee's moves. I've tried it all. Soon, another sandbag rushed towards the male protagonist. The male protagonist brushed and spread out the nunchucks. He took the thug's weapon. Turning around, a white-legged thug was easy again. The last gangster was also strangled by the male protagonist. Pull down hard. The thugs came into close contact with the ground. Just like that, in the screams of the thugs, the male protagonist brushed and brushed the nunchucks and finished the work. All that was left was the miserable thugs. It's not a level of combat at all, and the male protagonist is still disgusted with the nunchucks in his hands. It's too casual, not suitable for practice at all. At this time, the general health industry was already shocked. How many times? Although I heard that he took the autumn belt all at once. The yellow material is poured, but that's too much. The girl hurriedly ran over and expressed her concern for the male owner. Asked the male protagonist if he is injured. But all the way, the thugs didn't even seem to touch his clothes. And at this very moment, there was a thud. It was the gangster who had just been drained with a wine bottle. At this time, Pu Jinyi was stepping on the gangster's body. You said you know about that. How could I possibly let you go? That's right, that's exactly what happened a few years ago. Random killings in the East End. Since you were the little Luo of the Yen Bai gang. I don't know. This pry. The stick is your trick when breaking into people's houses. The reason why the security facilities of the houses are not perfect. It's because that device has a promise as before. That is, don't trespass on people's homes. Since you dare to break the rules. Isn't that also ready to be pried open? Enlightened. As he spoke, Pu Jianye raised the crowbar high, looking at the frightened expressions of the gangsters. What's wrong with you when you got the hang of it? Don't you even have the mental preparation for this? Seeing that the crowbar was about to fall, the male protagonist reached out in time to stop the crowbar. Enough is enough. It doesn't have to be to that point. I don't know why you're so angry, though. But that's a bit too much. And Pu Jianye just took it off and opened his mouth. What do you understand? My mom died. I told you to get out. Don't get in my way. And when the male protagonist heard this, he was stunned on the spot. His mother's death is related to Lee Hyun-woo. The male protagonist looked frightened and instantly contracted in fear. Could it be that the mother who was killed? I can't imagine that feeling. The male protagonist was silent. Pu Jianye is still persuading the male protagonist not to hinder himself. Saw that the male protagonist's hand holding the crowbar was released instantly. Then he punched the thug in the face. Angrily tugged at Li Xuanyu's neck. Pressed him against the wall. Is it you who killed? The male protagonist has lost his mind. Let the thugs answer him quickly. At this moment, the male protagonist has already moved to kill. Even Pu Jianye couldn't think of it. The male protagonist's reaction will be so big. Pu Jianye was also. The male protagonist's actions were so frightened that he came back to his senses. I don't know if you're really stupid or fake. You don't really think this garbage is going to be murders. No matter how you look at it, he's just a hooligan ruffian. There is no courage to kill at all. He just wanted to ask who was behind the scenes. This school. Most of the gangsters are Pai Han's wives. He must have been caught by the handle as well. It's just a puppet at the mercy of the Korean language. I saw that the male protagonist regained his composure. I thought about it for a moment. I finally remembered the name Pai Han. That's what the thug said at the time. If things don't work well, they will be killed by the big brother in Korean. But why would this Pai Han send him to do such a thing? And the general health industry is worried about the IQ of the male protagonist. This is clearly for the male protagonist. He still had the heart to ask why. It seems that it will be difficult for the two of us to become close in the future. But the male protagonist doesn't think so. The male protagonist looked at Pumi's back. Although he is a seemingly quiet person on the outside. In fact, he is a cruel guy. It's like a sheep in wolf's clothing. But in my eyes, it was as if he was wearing clothes that didn't fit. After the affair is over, the girl is quite imposing, staring at the thugs in front of him. I don't know when these children were. It's starting to change. It's like they're at the mercy of others. Of marionettes. The girl decided. He must dig out the brave man who started it all. Who would have thought of a male protagonist with full force value? It's because I want to see a girl. Shy's face flushed. It turned out that the principal had just done something again. Let the male protagonist wait for others in 2 weeks. Gather a study group of 5 people. If you can't meet the standard on time, schools will not support study group activities. Got the news? The male protagonist and Jin Shurxian were so frightened that they shouted directly. Trying to find 3 more people in this kind of school? Easier said than done. But at this time, the male protagonist suddenly thought. It seems that someone has already contacted him. But that person's identity is extremely special. Because he's a girl, it turned out to be a coeducational school. However, the boys and girls classes are strictly separated. So some of the male classmates during the school day. I didn't say a word to my sister at all. Of course, the male protagonist and Jin Shur. Xian's 2 10,000-year-old single dogs are included. At this time, the male protagonist is in the sister class with Jin Shurxian. I pull it out at the doorway. Maybe they don't know at all. What does that girl look like? So I had to go to the girls' class and call out my name. That being said, but it is much more difficult to put into practice. Unless they have social. It's good at this time. A student called out the girl's name. As for the male protagonist and Kim Shurxian, they have a preference in their hearts. Someone shouted for them. And when Kim Se-hyun saw the man's appearance clearly, frightened, he turned around. It turned out that he heard the name. I should have thought of it a long time ago. Thinking about it, he pulled the male protagonist away. It turns out this girl. It is the twin sister of the gangster, Lee Hyun-woo. Combined. And she is one of the school's notorious girls. How could such a person apply for a study group? And just as the 2 male protagonists were about to leave, something surprising happened. The girl who just called Ji-yu's name suddenly gave Ji-yu a hard slap. It's just because Ji-yu didn't write homework for the girls. It is clear that Lee Ji-yu is being bullied at school. Then, the girl snatched another girl's paper again. Did you already write it for me? Did you forget to put it on my desk? But what is written on the paper is midterm exam preparation plan. The girl casually threw the paper on the ground. I don't really think I can study at this school. Silly forks, you're really hard. As he spoke, he raised his hand towards Choi Shi-yuan. The girl deleted it. Was grabbed by Ji-yu's wrist. I saw Lee Ji-yu with a black face. She said that it was my mother who could be beaten. Don't bully kind classmates. If you want to fight, just hit me. Girls still want to get their hands dirty, only to find that the arm could not be moved for half a minute. I saw the girl's face angry. Can only continue 70. Ji-yu vented his dissatisfaction in his heart. This made Choi Shi-yuan's sister unbearable to look at directly. Lee Ji-yu, who was born in the 70s, lowered his head and was silent. It's like I'm used to it. Nevertheless, the girl still said Lee Ji-yu in vicious words. If you're not convinced, hurry up and pay back the money your brother owes. And when the girl saw the study plan on the ground, spit gum on the paper very casually, just when the gum was about to fall. In the surprised gaze of the 2 girls, one finger caught the gum that was about to fall. It was the male protagonist who made his debut. The moving girl can also endure it. But if you move something related to learning, the male protagonist can't bear it. In this way, the male protagonist is in the eyes of everyone. Look intently at the class schedule. The midterm exam preparation plan is amazing. The male protagonist is happy like a child. Are you doing it? So much so that doubts were written all over his face. Compared to Lee Ji-yu, Kim Suk-hyun was even more confused. Could it be that this guy is a social maniac? And at this very moment, a boy suddenly burst into the classroom. This is not the one who brought down Xiao Zaihuang. First graders. What are you doing with my girlfriend in the first grade? The male protagonist takes a look at this guy. I knew that it must be someone who came badly. Thinking about what happened last time, the male protagonist decided to slip away quickly. Now that Li Zhiyu's boyfriend is here, that girl should be fine. But soon, even more terrible school bullying is about to happen. You dare to imagine. The male protagonist who just wants to study hard even chose a hero to save the beauty. The male owner thought that the girl's boyfriend was coming. It will put an end to this violence. I didn't expect it to be returned. Make it the opposite. It has evolved into more serious school bullying. And just when the scum is ready to commit violence again, an unidentified object suddenly hit him in the back of the head. The thug reached out and touched It turned out to be chewing gum. The thug turned his head angrily. What the hell is a damn guy? I saw the male protagonist behind him take off his glasses. Isn't he your girlfriend? What are you doing here? The thugs laughed angrily. Picking the gum off his head, strode towards the male protagonist. However, when he saw the harmless expression of the male protagonist, but he was even more angry, grabbed the male protagonist's neck by the neck, damn it. Heads up. But as a result, the fierce dean of teaching appeared. Tell the thugs to meet at the student council, to put an end to this farce. Before the thugs left, with a gloomy face, he said to the male protagonist, "You wait for me." The male protagonist of the first grade suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. The dean of students will come. Fortunately, I couldn't hold back just now. And after the affair is over, the classmates are still talking in a weird way. As for sweeping their hearts, Li Zhiyu has long been accustomed to this kind of thing. I left the classroom without looking back. After the event, Kim Se-hyun is reprimanding the male protagonist outside. It turned out that a girl provoked the student union. If we offend the student council, we're doomed. But the male protagonist just said, I can't watch our team members get beaten. And Kim Se-hyun just wanted to say something. But his expression was stunned. A figure was walking towards them. It turned out to be one of the girls who was bullied in the class before. The girl is a little weak-hearted. In fact, I applied for the study group in the name of Zhiyu. The girl bows her head and pleases you. Please, you must save Zhiyu. The male protagonist is a little confused. What does Uncle Zhiyu mean? Actually, the girl was in junior high school. I was ostracized by my classmates. Caused him to live all the time in the shadow of low self-esteem. And when he came to this house with a shadow, when I was in school, sure enough, in less than a week, he became the target of bullying by his classmates. They are often robbed of money by scum. He was weak by nature and could only endure it silently. Then, it was the appearance of Li Zhiyu that brought him hope. After Li Zhiyu heard that he was robbed of money, directly one was thrown and pushed the scum to the ground. Kim Tae-hyun interrupted with a shocked look on his face. That's too violent, isn't it? The girl continued to reminisce. Since then, he and Li Zhiyu became very good friends, push each other to learn together. But because of Zhiyu's younger brother Li Xuanyu, Kim Kyujin borrowed a large sum of money. For this reason, Kim Kyujin also deliberately filmed Li Hyun video of Wu beating up a classmate. And Jin Coasian also held a USB drive to blackmail Zhiyu. Let Zhiyu obey him. That's when the tragedy began. It has always been Zhiyu who has been helping him. But this time, he wanted to help Zhiyu once. And he'll be on patrol soon. I saw the girl pleading sincerely again. Help Zhiyu. And please study with Zhiyu for me. However, the male protagonist's eyes looked at Kim Se-hyun. Do you think you can? You're not saying you've offended the student union. Are we done? Kim Se-hyun knew that this guy wanted to take revenge on himself. Scratching his face, that's what he said. But isn't there still a monster like you? Campus life is not always peaceful. Hearing Kim Se-hyun's words, the male protagonist smiled proudly. Okay, so first of all, you have to get that USB drive. Soon. The female teacher on the other side has already taken action. He called P into the office. I heard that you and Li Xuanyu have been quite close recently. Why hasn't he been coming to school lately? Pai Han's expression was serious. He didn't even say a word about Saturday, and pretended to be nothing. Pai Korean knows. This teacher must be trying to trap his own words. So always be cautious and cautious. But he still can't fight this classroom after all. The scheming of the top scorer in the exam. Knock on the side. It was confirmed that Li Xuanyu borrowed usury, and that he knows Li Jiyu. Meanwhile, in the student council classroom, a fat Zijing was holding the USB flash drive that threatened Li Jiyu, thinking about whether or not to make a copy. He also wants to use this to blackmail Li Jiyu. But what he didn't know was, a sixth man was looking at him in the crack of the door. How rebellious is this man's strength? One by one, it is no longer a problem. No matter how famous the gangsters. The male protagonist is all at once. But despite the fact that the male protagonist is in school, there are quite a few records already set. The people in the student union still don't take the male protagonist seriously. Also dares to bully the person covered by the male protagonist in order to get the USB drive with Li Xuanyu's handle. At this time, the male protagonist is lonely, hiding in the student council cupboard. Watch and see what happens. And just as the fat man was about to copy the USB drive, the door to the student council slammed open. It was Kim Kyu-jin of the student council who had already finished the meeting. Such an obvious move by the fat man. Kim Kyu-ae. I really saw at a glance that the fat man wanted to copy the USB drive. Immediately began to ridicule the fat man. If this USB drive is really anyone's copy. So much so that it has long been anti-water. I saw Jean Coasian pointing at the fat man. Any idea why I keep calling you pig's head? Then he lifted the fat man. One gets thrown and puts the fat man down. Because you're so brainless. I usually call you pig's head. You don't think you're really cute. The dead pig's head. The other thug immediately slapped himself on the back. It is worthy of practicing judo. That's it, guys. And Jean Kue is really ready to pull out the hand of the USB flash drive. But it was instantly released. No, in that case, that's today. He wants to upload Li Xuanyu's video to the internet to listen. At this point, the male protagonist's expression was instantly gloomy. Although I promised him he would not upload it if he was obedient. But I didn't say I couldn't go back. And you think about it. The only loved one left. In a sigh, he was sent to the teaching hall. Wouldn't it be particularly desperate? Next to the gangsters. Also immediately guessed Kim Kue-jin's thoughts. He wanted to wait for reason and after experiencing despair. Ambition. Then take advantage of the situation. Worthy of being the boss. Meanwhile, the male protagonist in the cabinet also silently took off his glasses. I remembered the way the girl pleaded with herself. The male protagonist's eyes gradually became cold. And too small trash on the other side, looking at the student council classroom from a distance. Go it alone? It's too dangerous, isn't it? No way. It's like before we said it and pretended to quarrel. Lure the student council out. Zai Ming sneaked in again. Cherish fate. Just yell, you goddamn stupid fork. Got it? The girl looked horrified. With his weak character, it's just too hard to get him to swear. At this time, Li Jiyu also happened to see this scene. Li Jiyu was a little puzzled about what they were doing. Meanwhile, the teacher review on the other side has ended. Korean just about to leave. I went back and gave the teacher a piece of advice. Education is just a service. It's not a mission. If you really fantasize, be a teacher of integrity. Then you're a fool. And the female teacher just chuckled. The Korean teacher will also tell you a truth. Even if it's a desperate person. Even if it seems that there is no hope of salvation. Meanwhile, the male protagonist in the student union. One punch knocks a thug out. I repeated the same words as the teacher in my heart. In this world, no one deserves to be abandoned. Jean Coasian looked at the male protagonist in front of him. It turns out that you have been hiding there. It seems that the student union is really not for me. And now it is. There's also this stupid fork that does not know the height of the sky. Scream in front of me. You like Lee Jiyu, right? Otherwise, how to talk about Lee Jiyu? You can't help but rush out. Hearing this, the male protagonist's face turned red. And soon the male protagonist's eyes involuntarily skimmed to the position of the USB flash drive. Jin Coasian immediately discovered the intentions of the male protagonist and the little gangster who was knocked down by the male protagonist on the side. At this time, he also stood up. Damn, I was actually doing a sneak attack behind my back. But soon the actions of the male protagonist told him. In fact, he's also a garbage on the front. The male protagonist quickly answered Kim Kyo-jin's question. Even if I don't know how thick the sky is, and know you're a piece of trash. Kim Kyo-jin angrily hit the counterproduct, grabbed the male protagonist's clothes, succeeded in making the male protagonist lose his balance. A fall knocked the male protagonist to the ground. Kim Kyo-jin, who brought down the male protagonist, began to pretend. It's light. But the next second he couldn't pretend, because the male protagonist was deliberately thrown there. The purpose is to get a USB flash drive. In Kim Kyo-jin's exasperated gaze, the male protagonist showed off the USB flash drive in his hand. The panicked Kim Kyo-jin hurriedly stepped forward to stop it. But the male protagonist has already put the USB disc. It was in the pocket of the coat. This was followed in a strange pose. A kick hit Kim Kyo-jin in the chin, landing in style. But Kim Kyo-jin is not comparable to those little Luo. He still has the strength to stand up. Soon he rushed to the male protagonist again. After the male protagonist dodged the attack, grabbed the student council on the side, Fu shouted on Kim Kyo-jin's face. Since it's not enough to fight, then do it again. It doesn't matter if you've been practicing judo for a few years. Can't withstand the serious punch of the male protagonist. In this way, Jin Coasian was also defeated by the male protagonist. However, just as the male protagonist was about to leave, Kim Coasian said arrogantly, "The file has been downloaded to your computer. Just click on him to upload." Lee Hyun-woo and that slut are all finished. Just when the male protagonist was flustered, the dean of teaching appeared behind the male protagonist. The dean looked at the male lead. "Aren't you the one who caused trouble before?" And at the same time, Jin Kyo-jin's male protagonist smiled at the general. And not at this time. Lee Jiyu in the corridor. I saw an unforgettable scene in my life. Kim Kyo-jin and the director of education in the back. I was flustered, and the male protagonist is running in the corridor with the chassis. This man, Ben, is an invincible judo master in the judo hall. Was almost thrown by a woman. In order to take revenge on Lee Jiyu, Kim Kyo-jin prepares a video of Lee Jiyu's younger brother's beating. Upload online. Who knows, but at a critical moment, the male protagonist pulled out the network cable, took away the chassis. At this time, the male protagonist is holding the chassis. Comes with a monitor. The keyboard is running desperately. The teaching director and Kim Kyo-jin chased after him. And Lee Jiyu was still confused. He had never seen anything so outrageous. Kim Se-hyun sorted out his thoughts. USB disk files and people running with the host running. I immediately thought of the reason. At this time, the male protagonist is holding the chassis. Run to the training room. Said to Lee Jiyu that as long as he smashed this, you don't have to swallow your anger anymore. And yet at this moment, the male protagonist accidentally stepped on the mouse line, tripping over the mouse wire. Kim Se-hyun hurriedly picked up the chassis and started the relay. But at his pace, it's too difficult to get to the training room. So Kim Se-hyun ran to the top of the building. Just throw this one down the stairs. You will be able to deliver on your promises. Kim Se-hyun was just about to throw down the host, only to find that Kim Kyo-jin opened the door of the rooftop and appeared. Looks like you're collectively going crazy, aren't you? You kind of throw one to try. I'm going to put you and this host to a fate. Kim Se-hyun looked horrified. Hanging his head and holding the chassis, he walked towards Jin Kuasian. In the next second, Jin Shurxian suddenly made up his mind. The heart threw the chassis back. Kim Kyu-jin watched like this. The chassis flew into the air. Just when Kim Kyu-jin was about to make a move on Kim Se-hyun, Lee Ji-yu appeared behind him. "Hello, silly fork." Then another one was dropped. Kim Kyu-jin landed with the chassis in this way. But Lee Ji-yu's fall once was not enough. And think of the pain of being bullied with a handle. He threw Kim Kyu-jin more than a dozen times. The rooftop was filled with a scream of raw Jin Kuasian. Kim Hyun-woo was chilled when he saw it. "It's too intense. I don't dare to look at it anymore." I saw Lee Ji-yu grabbing Jin Kuei. Is it true that the hair can't come up? Despite Kim Kuei-jin's constant begging for mercy, was still brutally tortured by Lee Ji-yu again. At this time, the members of the student council also rushed to the rooftop. I just saw the truth about Jin Kuei. Reason and the look of kneeling and yielding. And the other side, the male protagonist is being arrested and punished by the teaching director. In the end, it turned out to be like this. I don't know if Ji Hyun has disposed of the computer. And when he reached for his pocket, the USB flash drive is gone. So the male protagonist began to struggle violently. And the USB flash drive at this time. I just happened to be bullied by that. Lee Ji-yu's girl picked it up. This is not the U that brother Kuei-jin can't put down. He wants to take the U disc to Jin Kuei-jin to invite credit. Choi-shion looked at the girl who was far away. It's just one step away. If he takes it, then everyone's efforts will turn into a rain of cannons. I had to do something. I remembered that it was a swear word that I had never dared to say. Take a deep breath. Then the girl shouted to stop. "You stupid fork." The girl in front of her immediately stopped. And when he looked at Choi Shi-yuen viciously, saw that Choi Shi-yuen had already rushed over, thinking of the helplessness of being bullied. As for you, it's optimistic. Then came a hard punch to smash the two of them. Both fell to the ground. My sister was shocked that I had beaten someone. Soon the girl's shoulder was put on one arm. It was Lee Ji-yu and Jin Shurxian who had just arrived. I was not mistaken. Is this what a high school student looks like? And at this very moment, a man in black suddenly passed by, face up to Lee Hyun-woo. He was running towards the golden sunflower needle with a dagger. Seeing that Lee Hyun-woo is getting closer and closer to Kim Kuei-jin, the female teacher immediately blocked in front of Lee Xuanyu. At this moment, the knife can no longer be contained. The female teacher does not have to be stabbed with a knife if she does not flash. The female teacher clutches her injured abdomen, but he still stood up strongly. Hyun-woo, do you have something to really do? For example, learning. It's the toughest girl I've ever seen. Although the female teacher was seriously injured by Lee Xuanyu, but he still ignored the injuries on his body. It's hard to say, Hyun-woo. Don't worry. Do you also have something you really want to do? For example, learning. Isn't your dream to be a teacher? I heard what the girl said. Lee Xuanyu turned his head in shock. How would he know? It turned out that it was long after Lee Xuanyu bullied him. The female teacher has been investigating Lee Hyun-woo's affairs. Because as a teacher, he is able to see through students' eyes. Lee Hyun-woo is not really a bad boy, but he didn't care how many times he asked. Everyone kept silent about Lee Xuanyu. He was also advised not to inquire about the matter again. Death is not a metaphor when I say death. It's really dead. And when he mentions the Yenbai gang, the reaction from the vice-chancellor was even more violent. Even this school, it's possible that it has something to do with that gang. He could feel it. The existence of the leather Korean language is influencing this school. Moreover, Lee Hyun-woo is one of the victims. The real breakthrough came on Saturday, when the male protagonist cleaned up all the gangsters. He had looked for Lee Xian alone. You talked when he brought up the Pi Korean language. Lee Xuanyu ran away without looking back. In the end, it was another gangster, Lee Sun. Tell him again. The girl threatened to call the police. Let Lee Sun tell everything he knows again. Lee Sun was interrupted by his sister as soon as he said the first sentence. What, the first in the whole school? Because Lee Hyun-woo is an orphan. I used to work my studies in order to change their future. He even took the first place in the school. But after that, the orphanage where Lee Hyun-woo lives closed down because of the issue of bribery. Lee Hyun-woo and twin sister Lee Ji-woo. Since then, there has been no one to rely on. In order to find a job as soon as possible to solve the livelihood, you can only give up college. Went to this road vocational high school. But when he saw his sister couldn't go to college, a person wept silently. He began to make up his mind to give up his studies and work outside the home. I plan to give up my dream job sister to study. But he really doesn't have much to do as a high school student. That is, delivery and part-time work in an internet cafe. It's not easy to save money in a down-to-earth way. There will also be black-hearted bosses who don't give money. But one day he got to know Pai-han. Pai-han-yu took Lee Xuanyu's only 30,000 yuan. Gambling online. I didn't expect it to become 60,000 yuan all of AS. He worked day and night. You can't expect to make that much money. So he chose to believe in Pai-han. Afterwards, he mingled with Pai-han and his gang. Gradually it was stained. In order to please Pai Korean, he did all kinds of evil in school fights. But it turned out that he owed Kim Kyujin a large sum of money. Was also caught by Kim Kwaejin. Even the stupid thing I did this time. It was Pai-han who instigated him to do it. Pai-han-yu handed him a knife. Let him take revenge on Kim Kyujin. Are you going to be fooled like this all the time? You have nothing left to lose anyway. Yes, he is already cornered. There is no going back to the way things were. But in this darkness, suddenly, a colored hand fell in love with him. The female teacher's eyes were unusually determined and looked at me. Do you remember the last time I advised you to quit smoking? In fact, there are many successful cases of quitting smoking. People say that the nature of the country is difficult to change. But there are also people who have reformed themselves. Although Lee Xuanyu saw hope in the eyes of the female teacher. But I still struggled to run away. Don't lie to people. Anyway, they all have to go to the training center. But he hasn't run a few times yet. Ushered in a heavy punch from the male protagonist. The vice principal and dean of students were stunned. The male protagonist took out his glasses from his arms. Said lightly, "It's not a shame to be knocked down. The most important thing is at the moment of falling. Ask yourself why you fell. If you know how to reflect on yourself like this." The male protagonist lifted his glasses. "Go on, then there is hope for the man." This is what Bruce Lee said. I also use this phrase to motivate myself all the time. Lee Xuanyu looked at him for a while. He remembered the dream he had once written, was seen by his sister, and laughed at him. You still want to be a teacher with your stinky temper. If you want to be a teacher, all students must be treated equally. Lee Xuanyu looked at his sister, who had lower grades than him. Said sarcastically, "Of course, you have to study well." Made Li Jiu angry like thunder. This is the end of the memories. The female teacher touched Lee Xuanyu's head. Say it softly, don't give up. The female teacher's breath is getting weaker and weaker. I'll make it here. To be a school where you can learn. So don't give up. The next second, the female teacher finally couldn't hold it anymore and fainted to the ground. At this time, Lee Xuanyu's body began to tremble. I couldn't hold back my crying anymore. Can I really still learn? Since that incident, Lee Xuanyu sincerely apologized to the female teacher. And in the teaching hall, because of the plea of the female teacher, it was released after only one day. And Pai-han was also reported by a female teacher, arrested by the police. The next day, Pai-han slammed the door to the study group. Jin Shurxian had a ghostly expression on his face, and he was in the dark. Can I join a study group as well? He is the most awesome gangster boss in Luching High School. There are groups of women around me. No matter how awesome the students, as long as they are gangsters, they have to obey his orders. And because he has caused countless tragedies. For example, Pu Jinya's mother died. Reason and vigilance threatened by the grip. He's all behind it. And This is the scum. Now I want to enter the study group of the male protagonist. Today is a group of people who are panicked in Xian's heart. Jaime loses his mind when he hears about the study group. He wouldn't really say yes. But this guy is too dangerous. I saw the male protagonist stand up violently. Your name is Pai-han, isn't it? Pai-han also reminds the male protagonist not to fill in the wrong name. But the next second, the male protagonist rejected him. The reason is that he is in the eyes of Pai-han. I don't even see what it looks like I want to go to college. Not to mention learning. Pai-han Yu immediately put away his smile. You know it by the eyes. How do you know I can if you don't try? If you don't give me a reasonable reason, I can't accept it. And the male protagonist didn't even look at him. Because you're a jerk. Hear this. Han's expression was visibly unhappy. But he didn't care. I walked casually towards the door. I wanted to help you. Who knows that you don't appreciate it? The male protagonist is a little confused about what it means to help us. And in the next second, the glass of the study group was suddenly smashed. All three people in the classroom looked surprised. But the most surprising thing is the thrilling world. But this matter is not trapped by Pai-han Yu. Exactly a bunch of first graders. The little gangsters. Pai-han Yu explained to the male protagonist. You know the guy you beat. Is there anything in common? They're all second graders. There is an unwritten rule in Journey High School. That is, you can't skip the challenge. And you've broken that rule. That's why those first graders are so angry. Because every time the male protagonist challenges is a second grader. They feel. The male protagonist didn't take their first grade seriously. Yes, the male protagonist has long been famous in this school. Known as the monster In Jae-ming. Because he overstepped. Challenged a lot of famous gangsters. It has become the talk of first-year students. And the most dissatisfied with this. It's Jiang Taiwu, the first-grade leader. Because of the existence of the male protagonist, the respect that first graders have for him has decreased significantly. He wants to find a male protagonist to fight and distinguish himself. And even though he was downstairs waiting for indoctrination, the male protagonist doesn't like him at all. I just feel that this kid is delaying his own learning. Watch the male protagonist come down for a long time. Jiang Taiwu thought that the male protagonist was afraid. And they're going to teach a thug a lesson. Kill the police in front of the male protagonist. It was Wu Jun in the first grade. Ranked 16th in the first grade. He is also talking about what he wants to dominate the road. It's ridiculous. And the most ridiculous thing is this Jiang Taiwu. Hold your fingers up in the air. It is the club application of the study group. This guy is a good bastard. But I want to be a nerd. I don't know about the shame. As he spoke, he tore the application in half. And what he didn't expect. The male protagonist suddenly jumped from the top of the building. Jiang Taiwu looked shocked. He didn't get angry when he was so provocative just now. But I got angry because of a piece of paper. And the male lead. It was to take advantage of the situation and press Jiang Taiwu to the ground. Bring the application. And the first graders who were still clamoring just now. At this time, he was speechless in shock. I saw the male protagonist pressing Jiang Taiwu with one hand. The other hand hurriedly grabbed the study group application. Excuse me. As long as it's someone who wants to learn, it's the male protagonist. It's a gangster school. The strong can form gangs. Make the thugs who are ranked lower than you obey. Own commands. The weak can only be bullied. Reduced to a toy for other people's amusement. And at this time, the male protagonist was bullied because of the team members, mistakenly stumbling into a fight with a first-year student. Now there are 3 gangsters in the ranks. Other words, this is the formal monotony of the road vocational high school. But the male protagonist has no idea about it. Still looking at Li Jun's study group application. Li Jun wrote on the application that he was dominating Lu Gao. The male protagonist appreciates this very much. I want to learn to dominate the road, and I am high enough to be a man. And the male protagonist ignored the weapon. Don't hit one out. Slap the male protagonist's eyes off. What does it mean to turn your back on me when you fight? By the way, I've said it all. Whoever has this piece of torn paper, I suggest he beat one. In your hands. Gangsters challenge the male protagonist's bottom line again and again. Here is the male protagonist's insult. Learning is competition. The gangster immediately took a serious punch from the male protagonist. I saw that the gangsters who were arrogant and domineering just now lit up. Wall. In the eyes of everyone, he fell to his knees with a thud. The male protagonist's eyes are resolute. I don't have the strength to fight you right now. But the scene where the male protagonist knocked down the first-grade handle, it has been deeply imprinted on the onlookers. In the eyes of the thugs, this is a historic scene in Lugao. A guy who doesn't have a rank. One punch solved the first in the rankings. That is, at this moment, the number one has changed hands. The male protagonist looked at Lee Jun, who had not yet recovered his senses, and let go. Let's go up. And in the next second, Woo Jun was driven out by the male protagonist. The hegemony you were talking about is actually hegemony with fists. I'm sorry. Our study groups are for students. Concentrate on learning. It's not about helping you dominate Lugao. Lee Jun was anxiously patting the glass outside. Isn't learning to fight also learning? I'm going to study it hard. But no one paid any attention to him. Lee Jun scratched his head, or I would study together. And just when he was about to give up, the male protagonist opened the door violently. Really? Do you really want to learn? The next second, Chung-shan of textbooks was piled up in front of him. Then the male protagonist left a sentence to visit the teacher. And he departed, although there are mountains of test papers in front of me. But Lee Jun thought of the male protagonist's strength against the sky. He must worship the male protagonist as a teacher. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew. Lee Jun hurriedly went to pick up the test paper on the ground. Just then, a middle-aged man appeared at the door. You are one, Zaimi. I'm sure you've heard about it. I'm the Crooked Wall family, who came to dig people. Lee Jun was stunned. The Crooked Wall is strict and white. Heard. Yen Baibang will select the top-ranked students. Focus on training. It's like the standing army of the country. That rumor turned out to be true. The one who has no interest in fighting. Because I became the boss of the rankings. I can't put my future master in danger. Thinking about Lee Jun's eyes, he was alone. Yes, I'm Wan Tsai-ming. Soon the male protagonist returned to school. It was discovered that Lee Jun was not in the study group. Did you run away? And when the male protagonist saw Lee Jun's test paper, the whole body trembled with excitement. No, this guy definitely can't understand. This is a voice coming from behind the male protagonist. The male protagonist looked back. It's Pu Jianhua, who I haven't seen for a long time. He knew where Lee Jun was now, and Lee Jun on the other side is conducting a standing army test for the male owner. This oppressive atmosphere made Lee Jun a little uncomfortable. Soon the middle-aged man talked about the content of the test. The man picked up a car key. 3 thugs are standing in front of the car and passing the test. The method is simple. Just get the car keys when the thugs stop you. It's passed. And getting the car keys will not only pass the test, the car will also belong to you. Lee Jun's eyes lit up instantly. Are you sure? But what he didn't know was how dangerous it was to pass the test. All 3 gangsters have previous convictions. Zhang Feihuan, ranked 17th. The former conviction robbed the National Crown Feather and the main criminal convict of the murder businessman. The last Su Yofei was unharmed. Lee Jun smiled. It turned out that the man was ordered by this thing. Soon Woo Jun rushed forward. Don't be afraid, even if it's 3. I will definitely find you in Yantai. But the result was that he was beaten by the thugs, and his nose was blue, and his face was swollen. Soon the middle-aged man walked in front of Lee Jun. Sure enough, you can't be emotional. At that time, I saw that you were quite domineering. That's why I asked you to come along. You don't think I don't even know what I look like. Let's go find someone. You also underestimate the yin by gang too much. As he spoke, the man raised his iron rod. It's 20:45 a.m. Standing army test. Soon the man swung his stick. I declare it a failure. And without swinging the stick, one of the thugs was punched. It is a full-scale study group that comes up to the number of flyouts. I saw the male protagonist pick up the test paper. Lee Jun's study group passed the grades. How perverted is the overall strength of the study group? Lee Jun's study group passed the grades. Face the gangsters who are eyeing each other. This is the first sentence spoken by the male protagonist. Since the grades are passable, then Lee Jun is a member of the team. Then there is a reason to save him. The male protagonist hurriedly motioned for Lee Jun to come over. But the next second, Lee Jun was knocked down by a middle-aged man with an iron rod. The middle-aged man trampled Lee Jun under his feet. They're not here when they want to. A place where you can walk as soon as you want. It is not advisable to signal the male to take the initiative. When they came, they had already made a confluence. Preparations for gang warfare. And just as the two were about to rush forward, two thugs appeared behind him. One punch made the two of them hit their heads and fell to the ground in embarrassment. The scene was awkward for a while. Lee Jiu sighed in his heart with two idiots. At the same time, he also confronted another gangster. A mouthful of short mother-in-law. Scolded Lee Jiu and gritted his teeth. Soon the thug was the first to throw a punch. So much so that one leaned back to dodge. A backhand grab on the gangster's arm is an over-the-shoulder fall. Short woman. Who do you say is a short woman? Instantly threw the gangsters unconscious. Meanwhile, Pu Jianya also narrowly escaped the attack of a thug. There is no general health industry and no tone. The thug waved the wooden stick again. Pu Jianya dodged them one by one, but also with a serious expression. This guy seems to be waving around, but every hit is very lethal. If you get hit, you're dead. If since he is in the mess emblem, that means he doesn't know who I am yet. Soon Pu Jianya dodged another blow. It's to bring the paper tiger and punch the dust. That being the case, then I'm done. The middle-aged man bowed his head and cursed. Two silly forks. Then that's the guy next. The distance is high, and the real first-grade boss Ian Siming. And the male protagonist is on it. It is the most important of the three gangsters. Utility knife Su Yufei. He's a cruel guy. Soon the gangster swung a knife at the male protagonist. But the next second, the utility knife was wrapped in a roll by the male owner. That's the power of knowledge. Then the male protagonist took the roll and shook it gently. The thug took the knife out of his hand. Immediately after that, the male protagonist grew with one hand and leaned against the gangster's chest. Then make a fist in an instant. One blow sent the gangsters flying more than 10 meters. It was Bruce Lee's inch fist. And the next goal of the male protagonist. It's this middle-aged man. The man was flustered. That's the distance value is high. The score of the first grade leader. Amount. But in the next second, the middle-aged man's voice came. Ian Siming only saw it. The middle-aged man is catching the male protagonist's fist with one hand. So you say what's going on. The male protagonist's eyes were shocked. This guy is so strong. Then the middle-aged man raised the iron pipe with his other hand. A hard blow knocked the male protagonist to the ground. So much so that he and Pu Jinyi wanted to come forward to help. Was easily defeated by a middle-aged man. This guy isn't your average gangster high school student. It's a real member of the Yen Bai gang. Looking at the reason that fell to the ground and the general business, the man bowed his head and lit a cigarette. Could it be because it has just started school? The boss of this grade is too bad. And he just breathed a sigh of relief. The male protagonist reappeared. Seeing the male protagonist in front of the mirror, the man couldn't fight back because he had a cigarette in his hand. I had to raise my legs to resist. A roundabout kick kicks the male protagonist away. Excuse me. I'm more comfortable with my right foot. But when he looked at the male protagonist again, found that the male protagonist was relieved. The man instantly discovered the man's intentions. So he was just trying to lure me out of the way. The male protagonist bowed his head and spoke lightly. He had just been beaten with an iron rod. It should hurt. Don't put your foot on him anymore. The middle-aged man laughed out loud and touched the friendship. Your little gang has a lot of affection. I saw the male protagonist throw off his coat. No, it's not a small square. It's a study group. The male protagonist stepped lightly on the ground and drove it. I don't know if I can use that. You know, to take Bruce Lee's kung fu to the extreme. How strong? The male protagonist exercises for 2 hours every morning, studying Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do with a little death. My favorite thing to do is to study. It is the pursuit of the ultimate in martial arts. Finally, the male protagonist was in a sparring session with his uncle. Practiced a peerless blow. Uncle made this move taboo, called unilateral beating. The male protagonist stepped lightly on his toes, posed for a driver, and then stepped forward instantly. Since the uncle is a gangster, then this trick should be able to withstand it. Meanwhile, study group squads. Reason and Poo Jinya both fell to the ground unconscious. Only Lee Jun just woke up and struggled to get up. I don't know what's going on around me. Soon there was a bang. The scene in front of him made Lee Jun sober up instantly. The man who was still extremely arrogant just now. At this time, it has been beaten into the color of a duplicate film, with the last punch of the male protagonist falling. The gangster man flew out upside down in an instant, smashed on him. The man just straightened up. The male protagonist followed suit. Fist has reached the speed of the third universe. Only phantoms remained. That's right. This is exactly one of the moves that the uncle banned him to use. Punches and kicks are used mercilessly. Beat the opponent until the soul is scattered. Technology, unilateral beating. Then the male protagonist grew up single-handed again. A hard punch was thrown. Combo ends. This punch will be man. It is embedded directly in the windshield of the car. Lee Jun was so shocked by this scene that he stopped thinking. That's impossible. Could it be that what I saw before was a piece of cake? Such a powerful person. They even thought of me as a competitor. He only felt his heart pounding. It's the feeling of the heart that responds. Lee Jun immediately shouted at the male protagonist. I'm such a great person. But he didn't know. The competitor that the male protagonist said was learning. I saw the male protagonist put on his glasses again. Now these gangsters are settled. So much so that Yo Pujinyi also came to his senses. All members of the study group were unharmed. Then leave these gangsters to the police. And without a few people breathing a sigh of relief. The car hasn't been moving. Suddenly, it was speeding away. The male protagonist looked flustered. Meanwhile, Lee Jun discovers the man he has been looking for. Could it be that he is what the middle-aged man said? The fourth lovelorn contestant. Too late to think. Lee Junbai was the first to react than the male protagonist. Hurriedly pushed the male protagonist aside. Thank you for making me your competitor. But the male protagonist didn't let him succeed in playing handsome. Grabbed Lee Jun's wrist. At the same time, car sped by. Lee Jiyu, who woke up, was still scolding the man. There should also be a degree of scaring people. But Poo Jinya knows. This man just rushed over on purpose. The man also threw an olive branch to the male protagonist. Let the male protagonist join Yen Baibang. Indicates the strength of the male protagonist. You will definitely be able to skip the standing army. Directly became a member of Yen Baibang. The male protagonist just lifted his glasses, which is wrong. We'll go to university. Under the words of the male protagonist. Directly let the general build. Yi and Li Jiu. Awkwardly trying to find a crack in the ground to get into. The man thought for a moment. Heard of this school before. What study groups to do? Not a joke, it seems. Suddenly, the man's face sank. I will remember your journey. Children in the vocational high school study group. Then the man closed the window and prepared to leave. But there was a sudden pause. You're ridiculous. Attend the same school your mom used to be. Do you want to mourn him? Hear this. Just talked about the laughing spectrum, Janya. The pupils constricted instantly. The man continued, your mother was killed. You still have the heart to learn. Or did he make a will? Let you concentrate on your studies. Haha fell with the man's words. Pu Jianya has lost his mind and stood in place. That guy seems to know that my mother is really murderous from now on. Immediately, Pu Jianya chased him out directly by car. He had to be found. Must be caught. The male protagonist leads a study group. After a big victory in the battle with the gangsters, Pu Jianya suddenly rode out on his bike. At this time, Pu Jianya's mind was in his mind. He kept repeating what the thugs said before leaving. Seeing that the clues of my mother back then are in front of me, Pu Jianya will increase the throttle to the end. That guy must not be allowed to escape. And just as Pu Jianya crossed the alley, the gangster's car is just around the corner. A figure swooped out from around the corner. The motorcycle instantly lost control and rushed to the side. This strong man swore to be the son of the Li family. The push-on people were also Qiu Zaihuang's companions. He knew the man. He still remembered when Qiu Zaihuang first mentioned it to him. That look of fear. I saw Pu Jianya slowly walking out of the shadows. If you don't want to die, get out of the way. The thugs looked at each other. Is this the expression that Qiu Zaihuang said at that time? Sure enough, Qiu Zaihuang still likes to make a fuss too much. Seeing that Pu Jianya raised his fist and rushed to the case. But the strong man does not dodge or dodge. Even raise their hands. Let Pu Jianya's attack fall on him. The blow to the right of Pu Jianya seems to sink into the sea. In the next second, the strong man grabbed Pu Jianya's head. And then there was an attack. Jinzhen Pu Jianya Retro. Pu Jianya refers to being knocked down in one face. At this time, Pu Jianya was shocked. Although now their own body, not fully recovered, but he had a fire. Soon, the strong man slowly walked towards the general health industry. Stand up. Aren't you in a hurry to find death? While the strong man is not paying attention, Pu Jianya lightly tapped the garbage bag on the side. The strong man continued to stimulate Pu Jianya with words. You're not still looking for the real murderer of your mother. Haven't they all been in the news? Your mom died randomly. The motive for the killing was an accident triggered by drunkenness. Before the strong man finished, Pu Jianya was furious in an instant. My mom wasn't that dead at all. It was retaliation, the bastards of the white gang of oaths. As he spoke, Pu Jianya picked up the garbage bag on the side. Throw it at the strong man. However, it was still easily blocked by the strong man. But then, Pu Jianya took out something and slid it violently. The strong man's face soared instantly. It turned out to be a can with a lid. Pu Jianya took advantage of the time when the strong man gave God. A fierce flying ladder landed in style. Afterwards, continued to ride the motorcycle. Prepare to chase the runaway thugs. But I found that the fire couldn't be fought. Could it be that at that time, Pu Jianya hasn't had time to think about it yet? A strong man who recovered. Grabbed Pu Jianya's winter hat. Dumped Pu Jianya out. The strong man's expression won. I've always been curious. Why you know everything about our actions? You were there last time I went to the female teacher's house to make trouble, right? Then there is only one answer. There is an undercover agent. Then the strong man slammed down Pu Jianya's face. Then there was a beating sound. Soon, one hand gently picked up the key on the ground. Risk one's neck. It's been a month since I was an undercover agent. Finally, it was my turn to show my skills. And the male protagonist and others on the other side did not leave. The male protagonist is asking the police uncle for help, because his ominous premonition told him. It seems that something has happened to Pu Jianya. Because of that guy, as long as it comes to something related to his mother, maybe something will be done. Meanwhile, the fat man who copied Sanity and USB disk last time appeared on a motorcycle. As soon as I saw this guy, the male protagonist unconsciously clenched his fists. The fat man said that now is not the time to say this. Pu Jianya is dying. You can imagine, this harmless teenager in front of him. How much blood and hatred do you bear? In order to avenge his mother, he gave up his studies. The heart has become extremely dark. Now the clue to the murder of the mother is in front of us. Pu Jianya lost his mind because of this. Don't be caught by the Yinbai gang. The other side of the picture. The male protagonist and others did not leave. Because the male protagonist has an ominous premonition. I want to plead with the police uncle for help. Uncle Police, after much deliberation. You shouldn't rely on men. The Lord's ridiculous premonition was put into vigilance. Although the male protagonist knows that Pu Jianya involves his mother, will reveal the terrifying side. But he couldn't tell the police about it. That's when it happened. The police asked suddenly, that delirious gangster uncle, did you fight it too? Hearing this, Li Jun immediately ran out and showed that it was wrong. Is the leader of our study group. My competitor defeated it alone. And also, the 4 competitors were deliberately emphasized. However, the police uncle was stunned on the spot when he heard the confirmation. It can't be alone. No matter how you say it, the other party is also a gangster. And he is also an official member of the Yinbai gang. This guy is outrageous, isn't it? But the next second, the policeman's face sank. Do you know that you have sinned? Silver Tsai Ming. Li Jiyu is guilty of violating the law on the punishment of violent acts. I should arrest you immediately. Study group members is still fighting for the male protagonist and Li Jiyu. But the male protagonist knows. This is what Mr. Han Jing said. Violence can't be glorified with any act. In the next moment, the police changed their style. That being said, but because of the appearance of Yin Bai Bang, there's already too much injustice. It is said that the police are the backing of the people. But if there is a crack in this shield, of course, it doesn't work as usual. I can't praise you as a police officer, but I can't blame you either. I saw that the police suddenly held the hand of the male protagonist. I owe an apology to you. I'm not supposed to let the gangsters go in and out of the campus at will. Subsequently, the police uncle left a business card and left. The police uncle suddenly looked confident. You're a great guy. I'll need this too. Backed by state officials. Let's study well. Everyone. Soon return to the car with the police uncle. Pick up the phone and report to the person on the other end. What will happen tonight? They all said it one by one. On the other end of the phone, it was Mr. Li Hanjin who was recuperating in the hospital. And at this time, the general health, he was being tied to a chair by a few thugs. The thugs on the side were talking a lot. Isn't it too hard? This guy killed and didn't say who the undercover agent was. He also said that he wanted to find the real murderer who stabbed his mother. Blame the pitiful. Ku Jinya kept thinking in his heart. I have already informed the righteous path of smoke. If Ximing comes, although it is a bit faceless, but there may be a chance of victory. However, the gangsters didn't want to give Pu Jianya a chance. Dirty and bastard suddenly bent down. Don't you say it? Then I'll send you to your mom right now. And at this very moment, there was a sudden clicking sound on the doorknob. After a period of calm, a figure kicked the door open. Everyone looked confused. The first thing that came to Pu Jianya's mind was Yin Zai. Ming came quickly. The man's voice rang out, no. Not at home, in your home learning too. I said how I just gave him the phone number. This guy contacted me. Uncle Police clenched his fists and fought quickly. It's overtime. Never during off hours. Annoy a civil servant. Because you don't know how much he wants to get off work quickly. At this time, the police uncle punched a gangster. In Pu Jianya's shocked gaze. Only for a moment. All the thugs in the house lay on the ground. Frightened, the 2 thugs secretly got into the car quickly. Prepare to escape. They know. This guy. It's not like these little brothers can burn fat. Because of this police. But the characters in the Korean blacklist. And there are 4 stars. But at this time, the strong man suddenly seemed to remember something. Remember the last 4 stars. Is still Pu Jianya's mother. Wu Jinghua. On the other side, Pu Jianya has been loosened by the police uncle. Tied to Pu Jianya's hateful gaze. The police uncle is a little weak-hearted. Because he was one of the policemen who came 1 step late. He was still hunting down members of the Yinbai gang that year. But I happened to witness such a tragedy. He remembered the look in the child's eyes. And what was said? How did you come? I'm asking you damn bastards. How did you come? That scene still lingers in his mind. And the police uncle's thoughts have just returned, only to find that the general health industry had already staggered away. Look at the lonely back of the young man. The police uncle held back for a long time. I just said that you were not hurt. What was ushered in was only the resentful eyes of Pu Jianya. The police uncle looked helpless. I also experienced that kind of tragedy. It's also understandable to resent the police. But you can't abuse yourself like that. Soon the mobile phone of the male protagonist who was studying rang. The male protagonist opened the mobile phone and took a look. It was the notice of the police uncle. Ku Jianya has gone home. The male protagonist finally put his mind at ease. That's when it happened. The male protagonist looked surprised. I don't know when. A study group has been formed. The group members were chatting enthusiastically, full of laughter. The police uncle who finished sending the message was sitting in the office, looking at the text messages exchanged with the male protagonist. In Siming, that guy is quite interesting. And the kids? All exude a positive energy. If only I could get closer to them. I think of Lee Jun talking about competitors again. That look of excitement. The police uncle smiled. Competitors, right? Come on, go to the vocational high school study group. Maybe you can really change this school. Pai Han Yu on the other side looked at the blacklist in his hand. I want this to be possible. A school to concentrate on studying. I'm definitely not going to let that happen. And the list in his hands. The 4-star one is Mr. Lee Hanjin. It seems like it's time to start. Like a year ago. But now the male protagonist is still in trouble. Because after repaying Kim Kyujin from that day, Kim Kyujin always takes advantage of the privileges of the student council. Friendly to find trouble with the male owner. This time it's on the grounds that the male protagonist doesn't wear a winter school uniform. Let the male protagonist go home and change. And just when the male protagonist was at a loss, Teacher Lee Hanjin appeared from behind. The school monument says that winter uniforms are only required in May. It's April 1st. Do you mean that your student union doesn't even know the school rules? Jean Coasian, who was angry at this, gritted her teeth. But he couldn't do anything about this teacher, because it was he who saved his life. Jean Coasian snorted coldly and forgot it. Damn, Mr. Lee Han Kim just came to school. It made the vice principal furious. What expelled the criticism of Korean? The vice principal was so frightened that he was covered in a cold sweat. The same was true of Mr. Wu Jinghua at the beginning. Could it be that guy who has possessed him? The male protagonist has just come to the classroom, only to find out. The classmates looked at themselves a little strangely. The male protagonist had to quietly ask about Jean Shursian. I won't be isolated. Kim Se-hyun looked at the expression of a fool. Therefore, cloth is just the opposite. You've become the boss of the first grade. Everyone is afraid that you are looking at your face. And the male protagonist doesn't know. He is in the eyes of others. Has become a school bully who is bullying his classmates. And at this very moment, a panic sound broke the silence in the classroom. At this time, Lee Sun was falling to the ground in pain. A little gangster, constantly beating Lee Xuan's eye. Also said that your boss Lee Xuanyu said, in order to take care of Lee Jiyu, borrowed a sum of money from me. Lee Jiyu is not a good thing either. The male protagonist was just about to rush up to fight the grievances. Was pulled by Kim Shursian in time. He can't move this person, because if you do it to him, both the principal and the dean of students will be coming. The male protagonist looked puzzled. Kim explained, he's the most hated thug of all the thugs. Learn good little gangsters. First in the freshman placement test. Kim Ho-myung has 4 technician qualifications. People call the hope of high distance value. And at this time, Mr. Lee Hanjin, the Minister of Education, is being asked for help. We must let the scum of Korean be criticized. Leave this school. I saw that the Minister of Education's face sank. I can promise you that. But only if it is. You study in small groups. There must be one person who gets first in the midterm exam. Can you do it? Teacher Lee Hanjin is full of confidence. Of course, and the male protagonist on the other side. I cope with the punk who learned well. The thugs looked arrogant. I'm not one of the oldest in terms of fighting. It's just a good student who loves to learn. The male protagonist's face is gloomy. Did you scold Li Jiyu just now? Give me a withdrawal. Jin Haoming's arrogance has not diminished, so what if I say no? Li Jiyu is not just for money. Is there a relationship with Kim, Kuei-jin? It's not what a cheap thing is. At first glance, he is an orphan without parents. Hearing this, the male protagonist couldn't hold back anymore. A hard punch slammed blood into the thugs. But he paused in front of the thugs for a moment. The class immediately started to commotion. Didn't you fight? I just saw him swing his fist. This posture is really not covered. Jin Haoming's eyes flickered. Keep taunting Oops. It deserves to be the boss of the rankings. I don't feel like I hit it. Soon the vice principal also appeared at the door. Jin Haoming turned back and mocked. Is there any point in fighting the boss? Jin Shixian only reacted at this time. It turned out that he had known that the vice principal would come. Only deliberately provoked the male protagonist. And the male protagonist has a gloomy face. There are only a few days left in the midterm exams. Within a study group, just a study group held a quiz. The male protagonist took the penultimate test again. Now, the male protagonist thought of what the gangster said when he left. I was trembling with anger. Suddenly, the male protagonist stood up violently. Teacher, this midterm exam, I want to be the first in the school. Teacher Li Hanjin was a little surprised to take the first place. Did this kid suffer some blows? I haven't had time to talk about the academic affairs department yet. The kid was full of fighting spirit. However, Mr. Li Hanjin's face suddenly looked average. Learning is not something that is emotional. I saw that the female teacher suddenly made a whiteboard. Let's take a look first. February placement test results. Li Jiyu and Chui Shiyuan immediately. A frightened expression was revealed. Don't be too embarrassed, teacher. Li Hanjin continued to announce that Li Jiyu scored a total of 42 points. The average score is 14. Ranked 180th in the whole school. Li Jun has a total score of 94. The average score is 31. Ranked 132nd in the whole grade. Chui Hee-won has a total score of 56. The average score is 19. Ranked 162 in the whole grade, the last female teacher was biased towards the male lead. Wan Sai-ming has a total score of 24. Not an average score, but an average score of 8 out of total. Third from the bottom of the school. The male protagonist instantly looked lost. Jin Shixian hurriedly comforted. But what I thought in my heart was that 8 points was higher than that. I saw the teacher's voice coming at the end. The total score is 250 points. Third in the whole school. There was silence in an instant. One by one, they showed shocked expressions and they ranked third in the school. This guy is so powerful. Teacher Li Hanjin pointed to the whiteboard, except that it was idle. The rest are lined downstream. It is impossible to improve your grades in a short period of time. And academic performance cannot be expected to happen miracles. Subsequently, Mr. Li Hanjin cleared the school, but the distance value was high. It's not the same as a regular high school. The female teacher slapped the table, and I just did what I said. You could do it. Soon it was time for the end of school. After a while, Jin Shixian made an excuse to leave. But look at his expression. But there is a loss that is difficult to hide. Because he was in his phone. There's a text message from his dad. It's almost dark. Why don't you come to the construction site yet? I don't want to learn technology yet. Hurry up and get over it. It turns out that it was the day before. Kim Se-hyun. I took the third place exam result in the school and reported the good news. Was once again indifferent by his boss. On the grounds that they can't afford to pay their college tuition. Let Kim Se-hyun hurry up and learn technology. Kim Se-hyun has mixed feelings. Why was I born in this kind of family? But at this time, the male protagonist noticed Kim Se-hyun's abnormality. Immediately excused himself and left. He had to do something. At this time, Kim Se-hyun was silently walking on his way home. I happened to meet Choi Hee-won. Choi Won blushed with shame, or we should go home together. And the two of them don't know. A few gangsters in the alley. They have already been noted. The thugs have a vicious look on their faces, and they are brought back to me. Kim Se-hyun in the placement test. I took the 3rd place in the school, but his father didn't understand. He could have been admitted to university. Every day after school, I was forced to go to the construction site to learn science and technology. At this time, Jin Shursien was walking towards the construction site in frustration. Suddenly, he heard someone calling his name. Jin Shursien looked back. It was Choi Hee-won who wanted to go home with him. Look at the girl's blushing face. At first glance, it is the girl Sikhon. But I don't know the little thug in the morning. I also witnessed this scene in the alley. The thugs gave an order. Arrested Jin Shursien and the others. Take fun of Kim Se-hyun. I want to see how much the bullet nose can bleed. And the person who caught Choi Hee-won. It was the last time it was Choi Hee-won, the girl's best friend, who hit it. The girls constantly use vulgar language, insulting Choi Hee-won. With a snap, a heavy slap hit Choi Hee-won in the face, made Choi Shi-yuan's body tremble constantly. And only Jin Shursien knows. At that time, if it wasn't for the fast transfer, Choi Hee-won will not have the courage to beat people at all. Actually, just after the last fight with the gangsters, because Kim Se-hyun and Choi Hee-won dropped by. It's Kim Se-hyun. The two people who Choi Shi-yuan sent home were chatting. Kim Se-hyun accidentally exposed his true thoughts. In fact, he has always felt that he is by the side of the male protagonist. It's like a little one in the comics who only shouts 666 on the side. Junior. If Gamin is the hero of the manga, I may just be a small supporting character. But hearing this, Choi Shi-yuan showed a puzzled expression, right? I think you're underestimating yourself too much. Just said that last time in front of Kim Kuasian. Throw the computer console down. Not everyone can do it. And when the police station asked the police for help, it's also Kim Se-hyun. Explain the situation to the police in an orderly manner. They can get help from the police. In short, don't underestimate yourself so much. I remember Choi Hee-won's smile at that time. Jin Shursien gritted his teeth angrily. If it weren't for the fact that he just greeted me, nor will it be involved. I had to do something. Think of it this way. Kim Se-hyun bit the thug's arm. Raising his hand, he rushed towards the thugs. But Kim Se-hyun, who has never learned any fighting skills at all, still kicked down by the thugs. Kim Se-hyun, who fell to the ground because of his weakness. Grief and indignation. What would I do if I made a fantasy tomorrow? Thinking about it, Kim Se-hyun got up again. Don't rush towards the thugs. But the thug whispered to him. In fact, he investigated enzyming. He knows Yoon Jae-myung's weaknesses. Hear the gangsters say that. Kim was shocked. Can only unwillingly let the gangsters take Choi Shi-yuan. Fade away. Also said that he was going to do something serious with Choi Shi-yuan. And at this very moment, a voice rang out, rock, paper, scissors. It was the male protagonist who was standing on the side of the gangsters. The male protagonist looked at the scissors in his hand. I seem to have one. The thug looked horrified. What are you talking about? Didn't you just go out of the cloth? So I won. Willing to gamble and lose. Said, the male protagonist is a ruthless brain melon that collapses. Ferocious recoil. The force directly lay the thug on the wall. Are you crazy with the thug clutching his injured head? When did I say I was going to play a game with you? I saw the male protagonist striding towards the gangsters. No, I want to play a game with you. The game of popping the brain door is shocking and surprising. Could it be that this guy is fighting for me? But at this time, the gangsters were already excited. Raised his fist and rushed towards the male protagonist. The male protagonist said, rock, paper, scissors in his mouth. Then with the palm of your hand, steadily caught the thug's attack. I saw that the male protagonist raised his other hand. Again, I won on the other side of the picture. Lee Jiu. He and Lee Jun are playing a shooting game at the video game city. so much so that he shouted to aim quickly. Kill him, and we'll win. Meanwhile, let's talk about it with the male protagonist. Turn his head on the flowers. Another ruthless brain meltdown. The thugs crashed into the familiar wall again. The male protagonist said, lightly 2 o'clock. Okay, let's move on to rock, paper, scissors. This time I'm out of stone. The male protagonist is forcing the gangsters. Play rock, paper, scissors games with yourself. If you lose, you will have to play a brain melon. The little gangsters at this time. It's been buzzed by the brain bag of the male protagonist. This time the male protagonist raised his fist. This time I'm out of stone. The scheming thug hurriedly hinted to his companion behind him. The thugs in the back immediately took out their mobile phones. Look at their proficiency. It's not the first time I've done it. Chui Shiyuan hurriedly reminded him. Watching the male protagonist beat up. The mixed scene is about to be filmed. The male protagonist reacted immediately. Striding towards the thugs, I'm embarrassed. I have a phobia of cameras. As he spoke, he kicked the gangster's phone away. And the male protagonist has just landed. The other thug also took out his phone, but the phone was still kicked off. The phone fell to the ground and shattered. The little gangster was just about to turn around and insult the male protagonist, but it was held down by the male protagonist's palm. All said, I have a phobia of cameras. A strong sense of oppression. Let the little gangsters. Suffocated the second half of the sentence stiffly. I thought I would knock the first-year boss down with one punch. Just rumors. It turned out that it wasn't. At this time, the gangsters who took the lead took advantage of the chaos to escape. He's a good little thug. You can use your brain to deal with the male protagonist. The male protagonist looked at the remaining 2 again. Do you want to play for him? There are 7 rounds left. Just like that, scare the gangsters away again. The male protagonist immediately smiled. You see, it's still us who wins. And at this moment, Kim Shursian is unusual. You're the one who wins. After saying this, he left without looking back. Kim Se-hyun, who returned home, was unsurprising. I was scolded by my father again. A hard slap slapped Kim Se-hyun in the face. Didn't I tell you to go to the construction site? How can I get such a bastard son of yours? I wish you could learn a skill. You're a kid yelling at me all day to go to college. Even if Kim Shur-yeon is wronged. His father continued to be abusive. If you don't make money, how can you pay off your family's debts? Your mother left us a large debt when she was alive. Seeing his father's slap raise again. But Kim Se-hyun, who couldn't bear it, grabbed his father's wrist. I didn't say I wouldn't make money. I'll pay it back when I graduate from college. Kim Shur-hyun shook his father's hand away. With a college diploma, I can make more money. And don't always talk about your mother. Even if he owes money, he is still our family. It's your wife. Despite his father's obstruction, Kim Se-hyun slammed the door directly. Such a family environment made Kim Shur-seon shed unwilling tears. And Kim Se-hyun was just about to vent his emotions. When I turned my head, I saw the doorway. The male protagonist. The male protagonist originally wanted to come over and comfort him. But I didn't expect it. I just happened to bump into Kim Shur-hyun running away from home. The male protagonist looked at the time with a worried face. It's going to be Xiao Jing's time 40 minutes later. And Kim Se-hyun saw the male lead. The mood did not improve in the slightest. I know you're worried about me, but you'd better go back. I've already heard the situation in your family, especially your father. There's no way you'll ever understand me in your life. The male protagonist looked surprised. However, he still invited Kim Shur-seon. Why don't you go to my house first? Looking at Kim Se-hyun's shocked expression, the male protagonist continued. I don't know what you've heard about me, but I just saw you running away from home. I find you resemble me. I can understand that Kim Se-hyun is a little confused. The male protagonist smiled and went to know. Let's go. And they don't know. A group of thugs are hiding. They want to follow the male protagonist. Investigate the address of the man's home. He's the one the thugs hate. Learn good little gangsters. Because it has the title of the highest hope of the journey. relying on the protection of the school. He bullied and robbed all kinds of evil. But just now, he was taught a lesson by the male protagonist. Was also ridiculed by his sister. Said how proud Jin Haoming is to be the first in the school. I imprinted it all on my head. In fact, this is what he was talked about by the male protagonist just now. The more Jin Haoming thought about it, the more angry he became. Pick up the phone and call one of the thugs. This person is Ma Minghwan, the son of the manager of the Yenbai gang. Specializes in errands for fighting for people. The establishment of the beating does not need a reason. There's no reason to fight the company. Jin Haoming wants to borrow this person's hand to teach the male protagonist a lesson. And at this time, a batch of Koreans opened the door and came in. He was a little surprised to hear Ing Saming's name. Slowly approached Ma Minghwan. This guy isn't easy to mess with.